Hi guys, welcome back to Educator Dr. Mom TV. So today's video is about my pregnancy journey, specifically pregnancy over 40 during COVID. So if you watched my previous video, then you know that I had a baby in September. He will be 4 months next week. And our pregnancy journey was very different than my first two children. So in this video, I'm just going to kind of document the lessons that I learned during pregnancy, and also a little bit about what I experienced. All to encourage those moms out there that may be trying this at a later in life age, and also to just share the lessons that I've learned. As you know, this channel is all about sharing my parenting journey and the things that I'm learning along the way. And I feel like I learned a lot during this process of pregnancy and even parenting this new time around with 3. And so I feel like I'm starting doing this all over again in a different season in my life. And so it's been a learning experience. And so I may look down here or there because I have my notes in front of me. So that's what I'm looking at, if you're wondering. So I would have to say that the benefits for sure outweigh the cons. And so this was a surprise pregnancy for us. This was not one that we planned for, but God planned for it. And that's the thing, when you think that you have your plan ready, be ready for it to be shifted at any moment. And so I know that statistics say lots of things about having children over 40. In fact, even about being able to conceive after 40. And so that's what had me in denial in the beginning, because I was like, there's just no way. Like, it can't be that we're trying not to. And I am 41 at the time. I was actually around this time last year, actually. The end of January, I feel like early February. I was just like, no way. And I'm looking up statistics, and it's like 5% chance, 10% chance, 15. And you know, there were lower numbers, and so I'm just like, it's just no way. And I was wrong. And so the first thing that I will say is that don't let statistics course your trajectory for life. Like, don't let what people say, what numbers say, even what you think, determine the trajectory of your life, because God can change anything. I had a very difficult delivery, my second pregnancy. Had a great pregnancy both times, but the delivery with my son was very scary. I started off in labor. I was pushing, and the doctor started to notice that whenever I pushed, that his fetal monitor was dropping, his heart rate was dropping, and then I started to hemorrhage. And so I went into an emergency C-section. He was not breathing when he was born, and I was bleeding out. And so imagine that trauma, especially for my husband, sitting there and watching that happen. He just, to this day, it was very, very scary for him. And we had just decided that we didn't want to take that chance again, because we didn't know what caused it. So that was a big thing. Like, they didn't know what happened. It wasn't like one specific thing that could say, oh, if we did this different, or if we accounted for this next time, we could prevent this from happening. We didn't know. There were so many unknowns. And so we made the decision to just not try, even though it was our heart's desire to have more children, at least one. 4 is the max that we had talked about, but we just didn't want to take the risk. And so the first lesson that I'm going to say I learned in this is don't make fear-based decisions. And we talked about this, and we kind of went back and forth with, are we making a decision based upon fear? Like, is this what we are feeling really led to do, or are we just scared of what can happen? And so I would say, don't make fear-based decisions. If you have something in your heart that you feel like is for you, I would say to go after it and don't let fear dictate what you do and what you don't do, because I didn't know that I could do it. And that leads me into my second lesson. We are capable of doing so much more than we really know. I just didn't know if my body can handle it. That was the God's honest truth. The first thing I thought of was when I found out I was pregnant. I have to embarrassingly admit that my first response wasn't, thank God I'm pregnant. My first response was, am I going to die? That's how afraid I was because of what I experienced. And so I was terrified. That's the honest, that was my first response. I was terrified. My first couple of phone calls after that were to some strong women in my life who were like, this guy's will. If he gave it to you, he's got you. And that couldn't have been more true. It was a challenging pregnancy, but I always felt confident that this is God's baby. You know, like he gave this baby to us. And that's with every baby. But I just felt like, okay, you have a purpose for this life and you want this baby to be here. And so that gave me strength. And I know for sure that whatever you are called to do, God's grace is sufficient to carry you through it. And so that lesson was reinforced for me. That is something that I knew, but that is something that was for sure reinforced for me during this journey. I'll say that the third lesson, and I mentioned this in my update video, was surrender. And so I am so much of a planner. It's just like in my DNA. Like you plan and you prepare for the things that you want. My parents, they were both very responsible. They planned for things. They made sure that we had the things that we wanted to have when we were going somewhere. You know, like they put that in us. And so I'm pretty sure it's in all of us in terms of planning and being responsible. And so this wasn't planned. This was one prepare for. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to move. You know, like I'm thinking of all these things we have to do to get ready for another baby. Like, you know, you just start, and that's exactly where my brain is. And I said, Jill, pause. Because the first thing you need to do is focus on being healthy. And so once I got to a place of just like total surrender, like I'm not planning anything. I'm not going to read anything about things to plan for, because that's something else that I do. I'll research something until, you know, my husband has a running joke of I'm the researcher of the family, because I like to read. I like to learn. I like to, you know, figure things out. And I had to just push pause on that and just surrender. This is your will, God. And so whatever you want to happen, I'm ready for. Let's go. And that's kind of how I was every step of the way. Once I got to that point, it took me a couple weeks to get to that point, but once I got to that point, I was there. The fourth lesson, again, something that I knew, but was hugely reinforced for me. I should go back to lesson three. Lesson 3, the serenity prayer. And so anyone that really knows me, this is still a part of lesson 3, surrender. They know that serenity prayer it's one of the first, probably one of the first prayers that I learned, you know, that was kind of scripted. And I learned it. It used to be on the wall. It used to be everywhere, actually. I saw it. I remember it being in at least 3 different places of my grandfather's house. He used to have like little plaques of this serenity prayer. And for those of you that don't know what the serenity prayer is, it basically just says, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that is something that just really helps me in those situations that I don't understand, or situations that are confusing to me, or that can push me towards a worrying mind. That always kind of like gives me a pause. I have magnet on my refrigerator. I have it hanging in my car. So I had, like just like him, he was saying it for another reason, which he explained to me, which made total sense at the time. And it just stayed with me. In fact, it's on my necklace. I have this is the Serenity Prayer. I walk around with it every day and I hold on to it and I remind myself when I'm there, I just hold my little charm and I say that prayer. And so that was a part of my surrender, accepting the things you cannot change. And I had a lot of things during this journey that I could not change. So I would say, leading into my lesson 4, I'll share that around June, I believe it was like the first week in June, we had dinner, put the kids to bed. We were about to watch a movie and I just started to hemorrhage, like a lot. And I had never hemorrhaged or had any type of spotting or anything like that. I take that back. I had it once, but nothing like this. Not during this prayer. I had it once with my son, but it was very minimal spotting, like nothing like this. This was a full hemorrhage, like a lot of blood. And I went into the room with my husband. I kind of told him what was going on, and we kind of just looked at each other, and I was like, I need to call the doctor. And I can't really explain what was happening to me mentally, spiritually in the process, but a huge sense of calm came over me. Like, I didn't panic like you would think that you would when that happens. I just got really quiet and really calm, and I just felt like, and I said this, I said, I know that you're with me, God, and whatever you want to happen, I'm going to be okay. I just felt like I was going to be okay. I didn't feel like, what is also so crazy about this day is it was the first day that we were feeling a lot of movement from the baby. So you always wait for that, right? Like you wait to start feeling the kicks and the motion, and we hadn't felt it up until then. That day we felt him moving around like all day. So it was crazy that on that day, this was happening. And I was just like, he's okay. He's okay. I don't know what's going on, but I feel like he's okay. I've been feeling him all day. An hour before this happened, we were feeling him. And so, we just like, okay, we got to get the kids up. We were very calm for them, of course, too, because we didn't want to startle them. We were just like, mommy has to go check on the baby. And it was also scary because it was the middle of COVID. And I was like, I got to go to this hospital. So that was concerning, too. So, I got my mask and we took them in the car, and thankfully, one of my friends from Milwaukee, where we moved from, she moved here not too long ago, and she was maybe 10 minutes away from us. Again, whatever you need, he provides. And she answered the phone right away. She was like, I'm on my way. So she was able to, I don't know exactly even how that happened because I went into the hospital, but somehow she connected with my husband so she could watch the kids so he can be with me. And it ended up being something called placenta previa, where your placenta starts to shift. It starts to move towards your cervix, and that's not good because you need the baby to come out of your cervix, and it could cause this hemorrhage. And so, once they figured out what it was, and it took them a while to figure out what it was, and actually it was revealed to me what it was actually first, which is, again, only God could do, which gave me peace and calm, because even more peace and calm, because, and I also must say that they were able to find his heartbeat after probably 2 or 3 people had to come into the room to find it. And even then, I just felt a calmness, and I was just saying my serenity prayer, and I was just believing that I was believing for the best, but I was also prepared that if it's not the outcome that I want, I know you've got me. And I just felt that the whole time. And I just thank God for that presence of him and mine to be able to know you got this. And so at that point, once they figured out what it was, and they were able to, I had to go through this very painful procedure to get the bleeding to stop, but it worked, thankfully, which was a huge blessing, because had it not worked, I would have had to stay in the hospital until delivery. And at that point, I was 4 months out. I think I was already 6 months at that time. June. Yeah, I think I was 5.5 months maybe when that happened. And so I was super thankful that they were able to stop the bleeding. It was very, very scary time because COVID was going on. You couldn't have any visitors. So I was in there. They basically, once they took me up to the room, they told my husband he had to leave and he could not come back. And I was like, what? So that was really scary. So that was even more of a reason why I was super thankful that they got that bleeding to stop. And so I had to stay in, maybe it was about 4 or 5 days. It was no more than a week. And, when they released me on strict bed rest and for 2 weeks. And so I had to like really be really strict for 2 weeks in terms of not doing anything other than basically taking a shower, and I could get up and go to the bathroom. But like I needed to eat either sitting with my feet up or laying down were the positions that I was able to do. And that led me into a season of, I was finally released after the 2 weeks. I was released from strict bed rest, but I was basically told you're on moderate bed rest until the end of your pregnancy. So like no walking, no exercising, no standing in the kitchen cooking if you can help it, like, minimal movement. You can leave now. At least at this point I could leave and go and get in the car and like go for a ride, or, go outside and sit in a chair and watch the kids play and ride their bikes. I was able to do that, which again, I was so thankful for, because those first 2 weeks I couldn't do any of that. I just had to sit still. And so I basically, for the last 3.5, 4 months of my pregnancy, this is where I sat. Like, this was my spot. I sat in a couple other spots and I had to just keep my feet up the whole summer. Because it happened, it was the first week in June that it happened. And he was born September 18th. And so that was my position. And so my fourth lesson was, don't complain. Try to stay in a place of thankfulness. And so I really, really started to write down the things that I was thankful for. And this really helped me. Staying in a place of thankfulness really helps you not focus on the thing that you don't have by focusing on the things that you do have. And so what I knew that I had was that I was at home with my family. I was at home with my children. I was thankful that my husband was at home and he was absolutely willing to do. He was like, whatever we have to do to keep you at home, we're going to do that. So you sit right there. And he took over cooking and baths and learning time. Like, he did everything that he could, which was everything, really. Laundry, like everything. I couldn't do anything but sit here. Thankfully, I work from home, so I was able to keep working too, which was a blessing. I was sitting at a computer was okay, and I got a lap desk that could kind of sit over my lap. So that worked out great, but I couldn't do anything. And so instead of focusing on all those things I couldn't do, I focused on that I had him to help me do all of those things that I couldn't, and then also that I could be at home with them. And of course, I was also so thankful that our baby was still with us. Like, I couldn't imagine having to come home and have that conversation with my children. So I just really was being thankful got me through many hard days. It was hard. I won't lie. It was very hard to be inactive and not be able to do anything, not be able to see anybody. Then you have COVID going on at the same time. It was very challenging. Don't get me wrong. But what got me through it was staying in a place of thankfulness. So that's my fourth lesson. And then my fifth lesson is shifting your focus. And so one of the things that I started to do was read more and watch more documentaries about people who really went through a trying time in their life. And so taking the focus off of my trying situation. And at the same time, there was so much going on in the world people experiencing injustice and hate and just terribly awful things, I was able to shift my focus towards those things, those people that were, really going through things that were unimaginable. And it really made my situation so small to me. It really helped me not to dwell on my situation or have any type of, there's no reason to have a pity party. It was no reason to be, oh, woe is me. You're about to have a baby. So regardless of what you have to do to bring it into this world, you do it and you be thankful for it. And that's kind of where I was. And one of the books that I was reading, which is, maybe it's not over here. It's, it is here, is Anne Frank. So I really first I watched a documentary of Anne Frank, and which I had read in school, and then it prompted me. I was like, oh, so that's a book that I'll read. So then I ordered the book, and it really helped me to focus on, I had to say to myself several times, this child and her family lived in a and not just their family, several people lived in a one room hiding place for so long. So long. I was in a situation of several months, and this is nothing compared to the amount of time where they had to be in hiding for their lives. And just reading her story and remembering what I had already learned about her as a younger person in school, but hearing it again and watching her documentary, just listening to all the things she went through. And then I started to watch several documentaries about the civil rights movement and just so many things that our ancestors went through and the things that they fought for us to have certain freedoms. Like, those things all just really gave me perspective and really helped me again to take that focus off of myself and to really be reflective of the tremendous levels of blessings that I have in my life today. And so that really helped me get through as well. And it got me through to August. And then the last day of August, I had another situation of hemorrhaging. And this one was in the middle of the night, and it was more. And so at that point, I believe I was at 29 or 30 weeks pregnant. Maybe, I can't even remember exactly where I was, but I still was I wasn't where I should be. Maybe I was right at 30. I can't remember exactly. So I had to go back to the hospital, and they couldn't really locate the source of the bleeding. I had to go back to the specialist. Meanwhile, while I was on bed rest, I was having to go to lots of doctor's appointments, see lots of specialists, because they wanted to monitor this placenta previa and make sure it didn't turn into a couple of other things that could be even worse. And so I had to go see these specialists again, and they were like, the baby is fine. In fact, he's not phased at all. He's jumping and dancing, and he doesn't know anything's going on. But they basically said, you have to stay here until delivery. And so that was huge. That was a tough day. But again, I was just super thankful that he was here. He was still in utero. He was still healthy. And this is something that we can do. I was thinking, this too shall pass. The goal was to get me to 36 weeks. Well, it was just to get me every day was to get me another day. And so ultimately, if they're born at 36 weeks, it's a slim chance that they have to go into the NICU. At 37 weeks, they're really full term. And so even though it's not 40 weeks like a normal delivery, at 37 weeks, that's a super safe zone. 36 weeks, pretty good. So the goal was to get me to 36 weeks. And so, you know, every day was one day closer, one day closer, one day closer, one day closer. And so I was able to get to the 36-week mark. And again, those 5 lessons carried me through that hospital stay. That was really challenging to be away from my other children that long. And in the middle of it, they started school. And I just, again, thank God for making a way when you feel like there's no way. And so we were able to figure out a way for my mom to come, which ended up working out because I was quarantined from her. Because the reason that we weren't going to be able to have our moms come, which was going to be very challenging because we were used to both of them being there, like when our children were born. The challenge was they couldn't be around. We couldn't take the chance of me getting COVID, basically, and they would both have to come on airplanes. And so because I was in the hospital and isolated from her, and she was able to, and she had been quarantining where she was, we were able to work it out for her to come and be here with my husband, which was like a huge blessing. So again, I just focused on those things. That was a huge blessing to be able to have that support, especially for my husband when he had to start homeschooling. He was just doing everything. Bless his heart. So that took us to September 18th, and September 18th, we went into our C-section. It was a challenging C-section. It took over an hour. I feel like it was maybe like an hour and 15 minutes because there was a lot of scar tissue from my other C-section that was like in the way, and they couldn't get to the baby. So it was scary. It was, again, another scary experience. I unconsciously I was stopping my breathing. So I kept doing that. And the anesthesiologist would be like, breathe. I have a tendency to hold my breath when I'm tense, when I tense up, or like when I'm stressed, I hold my breath. I don't know why I do that. It's so unconscious. I don't realize it. And so I'm having to breathe a lot. And it was, again, another scary experience, but we made it through. And here we are. So that is my pregnancy journey. I didn't want this video to go too long. I was trying to keep it under 20 minutes. I'm over 20 minutes. And so I won't keep you all any longer, but it is possible to have a baby over 40. And let me also say that placenta previa is not something that happened because I was over 40. Trust me, that was the first thing I said. Like, is this because of my age? And my OB was like, no. There are other factors that can play into it. Having a previous C-section is one of the reasons, that is one of the causes that's linked to it. They still don't know why, but it is. And so she assured me that it had nothing with being over 40. And so every time something would happen, I would be like, is this because of my age? And she was like, no. And so you can do it if you are a mom over 40. And actually, I didn't even start having children. And my first child I had at 34. So yeah, I waited later. I'm the last of my peers and my friends. I was last on the totem pole. Actually, no, my college roommate came after me, but and we have one more to go. But most of my friends and my peers, their children are way older than mine. And so I kind of felt like I was late to the party. But I'm so thankful that I became a parent later in life, because my focus, I feel like I would have been a different parent if I would have started earlier. And I don't know if you can't really understand what that means until you get there. In our 20s, we're different. And if you don't want to admit that, or if you're in your 20s now, you're like, not me, wait until you get into your 30s. I mean, you think you kind of know things in your 20s, and you're just different. And so I'm a different parent. And I also am so thankful for all of the examples that I've had in front of me. My siblings, my friends, my other relatives, they were all able to be parents before me, and all be examples for me. And I always say that the parents of my students, when I was a teacher, I had like the best parents. I feel like I was kind of spoiled because I just loved I just got along with like all of my parents. I can't think of one parent that I didn't get along with when I was a teacher, and I taught for a long time in many different grade levels. I just used to learn so much for them, and they were so transparent. They used to share the good things, and I remember someone specifically, she was like, when you have kids, make sure you don't do this. I made a big mistake doing this. And I just always had examples like that of people like sharing their experiences with me. And then I also had my parents as examples, and aunts and uncles. And so I had gathered all of this experience secondhand and all this knowledge over these years. And so by the time I was 34, I had a arsenal, like a full piggy bank of strategies and ideas and do's and don'ts, and try this and don't try this. And so I feel so thankful to have that. I know that everyone doesn't have that. And so that's just another one of the pros of waiting a little bit longer to have a child. Don't think it's too late. Whatever age you are out there right now, don't think it's too late, because it's never too late. If it's meant for you, you will have it, and you're never too old. Don't think you're too old. Don't start counting. I had a couple of jokes like, when this one graduates from high school, you'll be this age. Well, thank the Lord for that. So what? So don't listen to the naysayers. You can do it. Your journey won't be like mine. Every journey is different. My 3 pregnancies were totally different. My 3 deliveries were totally different. My daughter was vaginal delivery. It took a little bit longer. I was in labor for a long time because I had to be induced, but it was a totally different experience. She came into this world just very quietly looking around. She never even cried. She just came out ready to take it all in, so everybody's experience is different. And so don't let someone else's experience. You learn from people, you listen to their experience, but don't think it's going to be yours. Yours is going to be yours, and you are going to be able to walk through your experience with the same level of strength that I was able to walk through it with, if you focus on the right things. And so I encourage anyone out there to listen to those 5 lessons, take them in, try to absorb them. And it's not just for even a pregnancy journey. Those things can be applied to anything that you're going through in life. So until next time, bye guys.